My name's Mary Rice. I'm president of League of Women Voters in Bloomington. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that never endorses any political party or candidate. Our purpose in hosting this forum is to provide you, the public, with the opportunity to learn more about the candidates so that you can make informed voting decisions. Your vote is your power and will result in your voice being heard. The primary election day is Tuesday, August 13th, and early voting is available here at Bloomington Civic Plaza already. We hope that this forum, as well as the candidate videos that will be posted soon on our website and on the city's website, and which will be replayed on Bloomington TV, will provide you with information that you need to assist you in making your voting decision. I want to thank all of you for attending tonight's forum. Please write your questions for the candidates for mayor on cards that have already been passed out to you, and then pass the cards to one of our card collectors. Could the card collectors wave your hands? All right. I want to thank also the candidates for the time and effort that you've dedicated to running for office and for participating in this forum. In these days of political polarization, we in Bloomington can be proud of all of our candidates. We can be proud of them for the efforts that they make to run positive campaigns and for their demonstrating the civility in this forum that's becoming of the office they seek and that reflects the attitudes and demeanor of our community as a whole. We ask that the members of the audience not clap, cheer, or otherwise do anything that may disrupt the forum in any way or the recording process. Thank you also to the members of the League of Women Voters Bloomington for planning this event, to the City of Bloomington for the use of the Black Box Theater, to Bloomington TV for recording and broadcasting this forum. Again, this forum will be posted for viewing online at the League of Women Voters Bloomington website, on the City of Bloomington website, and on YouTube. It will also be rebroadcast multiple times on Bloomington TV. Now I want to introduce Lonnie Skretner, our moderator. Ms. Skretner is a highly skilled moderator who has moderated many league forums. She's a member and past president of the Edina League of Women Voters. She will now identify the rules of the forum and will introduce you to the candidates. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone, on my behalf as well. Before we get started, would everyone please take out their device and make sure that it is either on silent or turned off, so that we don't have those disruptions. Thank you. As Mary Rice said, the purpose of this evening forum is to provide an opportunity for you to hear these mayoral candidates discuss issues that are important to you, the voters. We will try to cover as many issues as possible in the time we have. Remember that if your questions are not addressed, you're welcome to contact candidates individually. The views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates and not those of the League of Women Voters. The fact that the League is sponsoring this forum does not imply support for any candidate. All of the candidates who filed for mayor were invited and are present for the forum. The rules. Speaking order was set before the forum with a grid set up, and I will rotate questions among candidates, so I will be calling their names before they speak. Each candidate will have a minute opening and closing statement and 1 minute to answer each of the questions. A league volunteer will time candidate responses and hold up signs to show the candidates when they have 30 seconds, when they have 15 seconds, and when they must stop. Candidates, please take note of where those signs are. This forum will also have a couple of lightning rounds where candidates will be requested to answer a question briefly, like in a fairly simple sentence. Having moderated these forums, I have heard the longest run-on sentences that you can imagine. You are asked to write your questions on the note cards. You saw the volunteers raise their hands. If you need more cards, if you want to ask another question, also raise your hand and a volunteer will bring you another card. LWV Bloomington determines which questions will be asked and attempts in good faith to cover all of the topics as much as possible. All written questions become the property of LWV Bloomington. No campaign material, signs, brochures, cards, buttons, or clothing with candidate information are to be in this room, and I don't see anything. You're good people. This forum is being video recorded. Please hold your applause until the end. Candidates, please make sure you speak into your microphone so that your responses are heard and picked up by the video. The candidates for mayor who are here tonight, coming down the table from what, from my perspective, is the top, Tim Bussey, Sharon Christensen, Reiner Eisman, Ryan Kulka, and Dan Nijelik. We will begin with opening statements and Mr. Bussey.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Tim Bussey, and for the last 8 years, I've had the pleasure of serving as a city council member at large here in the city of Bloomington, and now I am very excited to be running for the role of mayor. This is an important election in the city of Bloomington, and I firmly believe that I'm the best candidate, and I hope at the end of the evening that you'll agree with me, and here's why. First of all, effective and proven leadership matters. The role of mayor in Bloomington is a big job, and a learn-as-you-go type approach is simply not going to work in Minnesota's fourth largest city. Secondly, community involvement matters, and like most things in life, what you get out of your community is equal to what you put into it. And I truly believe you deserve a mayor who's active and involved in the community. And finally, Bloomington has done a heck of a lot of great things, and we have work to do. And so I thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this forum, and I look forward to our discussion tonight.
Thank you. Ms. Christensen.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Christensen, and I would first of all would like to thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this tonight. I am a lifelong resident of the Twin Cities area, growing up in St. Paul. I currently am a legal secretary with the General Counsel's Office, Administrative Law Division of the Minnesota Department of Human Services. And my past involvement has been in the Hennepin County Mental Health Advisory Board. I've been a guardian ad litem. And why I'm running is because I see change in Bloomington that really needs to happen. And I believe that the council that will be coming up in the future will be able to address these issues with the help of the citizens of this community. Thank you.
Mr. Einsman.
Good evening. I came from Germany when I was a teenager and went to college here, and I was a teacher in Winona High School area for a while, and then I worked for the Employment Service for a while as an investigator and other things. I was in the Army, 60-61, and what I would like to see done is try to start the discussion about closing everything, including Mall of America, on Sundays, so that independent people that want to have a business don't have to work more than 6 days a week. And I also would like to have either full-time inspection at the lakes or close them off with serious gates, but they can call somebody to inspect them and pay for it, you know. But the invasive species is my big thing. Oh.
Thank you. Mr. Kulka.
Hi, thank you. Good evening. I would also like to thank the League of Women Voters for putting on this forum, and also the other candidates for being here, and everybody for paying attention to this. As Tim said, this is a very important election, and turnout for this event is crucial. I'm Ryan Kulka. I grew up in Bloomington. I'm a lifelong resident of the city, all the way from elementary school to graduating high school, playing youth sports and being involved in choir and theater, all the way up through are some of my best memories. I feel that I can make an immediate positive impact on the city of Bloomington. I'm a business owner. I've started and operate 2 businesses that reside in the city of Bloomington. And I feel like that is a strength as far as being able to manage budgets, manage people, be relatable, and I feel like I am the best candidate for mayor for those reasons. Thank you.
Mr. Nijelik.
Good evening. My name is Dan Nijelik, and I want to start by thanking all of you for attending this evening. Your participation tonight shows your commitment to make sure we have a great city. My 27 years of city government experience indicates to me that creating great cities starts when committed residents, businesses, and city staff work together. We all know we live in an amazing city. But over the past 5 years, it seems like we need to do a course adjustment for city government. If you look at the past 5 years, you'll see that 3 major crime types are up. Traffic fatalities are up 500%. We have less jobs today than we had 5 years ago. We have thousands of residents who feel their voice wasn't heard in some prior city projects, and now we're looking to invest in a water park with limited tax and bond dollars. I would like to work with you to do that course adjustment to ensure we have a safe, affordable, sustainable, and equitable city, because together we can make things happen.
Thank you. We'll move on to audience questions. And we will begin this round with Mr. Nijelik. What is your position on ranked choice voting specifically for the city of Bloomington? Whether you are in favor of or opposed to it, what factual support do you have for your position?
Thank you. Real quick, ranked choice voting makes sense, and we as a city need to prioritize the fact that voter participation in municipal elections is very low. Less than 26% participate in the last municipal elections. We need to get out, create a community conversation about why people are not voting, look to change that. We need to have some serious conversations about what those obstacles are. We need to have conversations about even year elections, term limits, and ranked choice voting. Now's the time for us really to get together as a community and say, why are we not voting? Why do we only have 26% of people participating in municipal elections? What can we do about it? Those conversations are going to be had in the neighborhood, and we're going to talk about those issues, and we are going to grow our voter participation because that's where democracy starts.
Thank you. Same question, Mr. Einsman.
I'm for ranked choice voting. That's all.
Do you have reasons for your position?
No, it's a more efficient way of allocating the votes.
Okay. Mr. Bussey.
I continue to be firmly on the fence with ranked choice voting because I have the information and have talked to a number of folks about it, but I am still trying to figure out if it really achieves the goals that it hopes to. I've heard from a number of folks, I hear from the ranked choice folks, that it does increase voter participation, but looking at the numbers in Minneapolis over the last 2 election cycles, the numbers were up, but they also had some very contentious and challenging elections in both the city council and at the mayor's level. The other big benefit of ranked choice voting is the fact that it prevents rancorous campaigning because you have to appeal to a higher number of folks. And frankly, here in Bloomington, I don't necessarily see that as a problem. We do have some challenges every now and again, but certainly not the type of rancor that happens at the state and at the federal level. So I continue to look at this issue and continue to consider it and have not yet made a decision one way or another whether I support ranked choice voting.
Thank you. Ms. Christensen?
I didn't really know a lot about ranked choice voting in the beginning, and I went to an event sponsored by the group, and I learned more about it. I believe ranked choice voting is a really good way of doing it because, as my opponent said, the numbers are down. If you look at the numbers that vote, and actually the time that it takes, the cost for the city to run the primaries, to bring everybody through just right to the November elections just makes sense. That way there's a calculated risk, obviously, if you get more higher votes. I mean, that's in any election. A lot of things could happen, you know, the weather, people's moods that day, if they really want to vote, you know, there's just a lot of things. But that way, everybody moves through the election, stopping the excessive cost that the city has to open up every single precinct for a very small number of votes. So in that case, I'm approving the ranked choice voting for the city.
Thank you. Mr. Kulka?
Thanks. I'm opposed to ranked choice voting. I understand the positions that it does promote sportsmanship within elections. However, I don't agree that that's the solution as far as raising voter turnout. I think there are other better solutions. Also, I feel that it might even detract people from voting based on some confusion that might happen as far as educating voters as to what ranked choice voting is, how it works, and I actually think it would, deter a lot of people from coming out and voting, not to mention the expense of implementing such a program at the polling places and infrastructure and all of those things. Also, I feel as though the people that do get out there and vote, this ranked choice voting almost lends to the median vote and not the highest number one vote getter, and I'm opposed to that.
Thank you. We will move on to another question, beginning with Mr. Kluka. Do you support or oppose a new community center for Bloomington? How much might it cost, and how would you finance it?
I'm not opposed to a new community center in Bloomington. I think we have a lot of great facilities for the community. However, the current facility, community center, does need a lot of work. I'm for a new community center in Bloomington. However, there are some issues with that as far as, number one, where would it be placed and how much would this cost? I think there are some big questions as far as how much money should we spend on a community center. I've heard numbers in the range of $80 to $90 million, which to me seems exorbitant. And I've heard issues of where this might be placed over Valley View Fields and some other areas that would take away Park and Rec and have other implications and fallout. So I am for a new community center. I think we can always be improving our facilities. However, the big questions are, what do we spend? We need to be conservative and responsible with our spending there, and also where do we put this so that there isn't such a fallout?
Thank you. Mr. Niziolek.
Thank you. I support community centers. The proposal right now is a city center. I think we really need to stop and say, what are the priorities of our city? Safe, affordable, sustainable, equitable. We know the schools right now are challenged with financial resources around their buildings. We know the city has limited tax dollars. We need to look at our existing city and school buildings. We need to think about how we already have 3 indoor pools. We have 2 recreation centers in our schools. What if the city and the school board work together? Another thing nice about this, we would have multiple community centers, which means that neighbors would be able to go to places next to them. The closer they are, the more people use it, the more they know each other. By working between the school board and the city with existing buildings, we grow the amenities for the students as well as for the community, and a lot of the uses are complementary. So that's where we need to have more partnership between the schools and the city. We need to be fiscally responsible, but we need to engage our community in what those look like.
Thank you. Ms. Christensen.
I agree with my opponents with the question of whether we need a new community center or not. Yes, we do. We really do. Looking at the cost of the current community center, where the cost is lower to actually build the new community center than it is to remodel the current one. But we do need to make it more affordable and more fiscally responsible for the city to engage in. We need to have it more than just a senior center. We need it to where it seems like some community centers in some cities tend to end up. This way, if we engage the community, if we get their opinions of where that should be placed, and the feasibility studies, of course, of the costs and location would be better. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bussey.
And I'm absolutely in favor of a community center. We've been working on this for 5 years here at the city level, and that's not just me saying that I'm in favor of a community center. We did a community survey, and I can't remember the percentage of folks that said, yes, we need a new community center, but it was well above the 50%. I think it was 60 or 70% of folks who said, yes, we need a new community center. We asked what should be in the community center. They said meeting rooms, a number of meeting rooms, big and small. They said an indoor water feature so that it can be used year-round, and ideally for birthday parties or for community gatherings or that type of thing. They want outdoor water features, so whether there could be a splash pad or a lazy river. We heard about the need for recreation and athletic facilities and workout facilities. So the way it's moving forward now is that it incorporates all of those different pieces of the puzzle. Now, we haven't put it all together in one to come up with a final number. I think we're working toward that right now. But to maintain Creekside as it is now, it's throwing good money after bad, and we will not continue to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Einsman.
I think that would be nice if we did that. We also need and should find some spaces where artists can have an inexpensive studio. My wife is a former University of Minnesota art professor, and she doesn't want to pay, thousands of dollars for a studio. And there's a lot of artists like that. The community center would be real nice to have, and I hope the city can afford it.
Thank you. We'll move on to another question, and we'll begin with Mr. Einsman. Do you support the new water park, and why or why not?
Well, I kind of like it very much because when they put one in another big place like that in Canada, it helped the retail sector. So I'm leaning towards favoring it. I hope it will be resolved before I'm mayor, so I don't have to take a position.
Thank you. Mr. Bussey.
Yes, as we stand right now, I'm in favor of the water park, proposed water park at the Mall of America. I think I believe that the benefits outweigh the risks, and for a number of things. First of all, I think it's important to realize no city property tax dollars are committed to this water park. No city property tax dollars are committed to this water park, and they will not be. It's financed through, you've heard of the financing idea that comes through a nonprofit and so on, but it's important to know that this will not be a city-financed project. Secondly, I think the estimated benefit to the city, an extra $1 million a year in admissions revenue and hotel tax and so on would certainly be beneficial. And I think we also have to look at ways to make sure that the Mall of America stays viable and vital and an important part of the not only the state economy, but the upper Midwest and as a national attraction. I think it's very important. And frankly, I think a water park at the Mall of America would be a booming success. There's a reason why there's a dozen water parks at in the Wisconsin Dells.
Thank you. Mr. Kulka.
I think the water park at the Mall of America is a very polarizing issue. A lot of the questions are around the finances of it, who will be financing it. A nonprofit maybe, but I've heard rumblings that the city might even be involved with the nonprofit. So I think that indirectly the citizens of Bloomington will be funding this water park or a portion of it, and I don't necessarily agree with that. Also, how many water features do we need here in Bloomington? We have a good handful, and we have options for people, and I have not seen any evidence that residents are really pining for this. I also feel like it's kind of been pushed through very quickly and with not a lot of transparency. I don't feel like people have been heard on this issue enough for the city to be able to 100% commit to it at this point. I would like to see more information and more feedback from the residents as to what they really feel about this issue and give them a voice on that.
Thank you. Mr. Nishelik.
Unless I'm missing, or there's not been a publicized living wage job commitment by the Mall of America, I'm not supportive of the current water park proposal. Tax-exempt bonds should not be picking winners or losers in the marketplace. Tax-exempt bonds have special purposes, which is public purpose. I don't know how a public water park plays, how a water park, not a public, it's a water park, a for-profit water park, even though it's run by a nonprofit, I don't know how that meets the purpose of tax-exempt bonds. And finally, we need to really focus our limited economic dollars. There are tax dollars going into this. Don't kid yourself. Maybe not property tax dollars. There are still tax dollars going into this proposal. We need to focus those limited tax dollars and bond dollars on living wage jobs, affordable housing, and ensure we have a diverse economy in Bloomington that's going to sustain the market's ups and downs. The water parks in Wisconsin Dells, I believe, are not publicly funded.
Thank you. Ms. Christensen.
While having a water park at the Mall of America is beneficial, perhaps to the mall, I really am kind of on the fence about the water park itself because of the one good thing is if in fact that the city does not put any tax dollars in. However, we could be investing our time and effort and people that are going to be working there in, like my opponent said, in more fair, livable wages, affordable housing, those types of things. Now, don't get me wrong, who among us hasn't spent a lot of time and money at the Mall of America? But is it really going to be a draw, and how much would it really take to bring profitability to the mall? So in that case, in that respect, I am on one end opposed to it, so thank you.
Thank you. Going to do a quick lightning round here. Remember, lightning round means a yes or no and a fairly simple sentence, and remember that I taught grammar. And we will begin this round with Ms. Christensen. Should the Minnesota River Bottom Trail be completed by paving it?
Well, I can look at this two ways. I think, yes, paving the river park would be great for accessibility for handicapped people, et cetera, bicycles, strollers, et cetera. On the other hand, no. The city could be using their money become more fiscally prudent and go for other things at this point in time.
Thank you. Mr. Kulka?
Same question?
Same question.
No. Expensive, and people don't want it.
Mr. Nijelik?
19 acres of pavement, the loss of over 2 acres of wetlands in a floodplain makes no sense. We need to realize what floodplains are for and what wetlands are for, and we need to spend our money effectively. I am opposed to it. We can look at trails, but paving in the river bottom, which is a floodplain, makes no sense.
Mr. Einsman?
I'm against paving it because there's flooding all the time, and then we'd have to fix it, and the city doesn't have the money or doesn't want to spend the money to fix it every year. My son is a leading bicyclist, and he studied it for years, and we shouldn't pave it.
Mr. Bussey?
This is a state project, approved by the DNR, approved by the House and Senate, and signed into law by the governor. I don't believe it's the role of a 7-member city council to cancel a state project. There will not be city money in this. The city will not be required to maintain it. If you're opposed to it, I would strongly encourage you to contact the DNR, the commissioners. Sarah Stroman, I think, is the new commissioner. I'm sure she'd be happy to hear from you.
Thank you. You did a good job of being short.
I'll be longer next
Now we'll move on to a question from the audience. And we will begin with Mr. Bussey. What is equity? What have you done for Black and brown folks? How will you involve diverse members of the community in decision-making?
5 years ago, the City Council named equity and inclusion one of our 6 strategic priorities, and we've been working since that time to make Bloomington an equitable and inclusive community. Done it through a variety of different ways. We've done it internally with our staff, trying to make the staff more reflect the community that we serve. We want to make sure that our hiring practices end up reflecting the city that we serve. We've done it through internally through lunch and learns and through information sharing. We've done it through reaching out into the community. We have a new Office of Outreach and Engagement that goes out into the community and meets people where they are and not necessarily requiring them to come to City Hall for activities or for information. We were one of 2 cities at the Pride Festival 3 weeks ago. We had a booth at the Pride Festival. Bloomington is working toward equity and inclusion. It is a long journey. It's a journey that a number of cities are on, but I think Bloomington right now is leading the way in a lot of different aspects of equity and inclusion.
Thank you. Mr. Nijelik?
Thank you. Equity means that all will share in the opportunities of Bloomington. And it's 2 parts. One is the workforce of our city should reflect the community it serves. 2 is we need to make sure that those who are in our community are part of conversations. The first part I've been working on for 27 years in city government. One of the real effective programs we've seen in terms of the composition of our workforce are Right Track and Step Up programs that Minneapolis and St. Paul have. What those are high school internships for people to get to know employers in our community. And what happens there, as we all know, what's the best way to get a job? who you know. If we get internship of our high school students in employers, so they get to know the students get to know employers, we're now changing the composition of our community. The last part, the bottom line of my campaign is we need to be a community-engaged government. We need to know our communities geographically and non-geographically. We need to do outreach to them. All city staff should be working with all our different communities and inviting them to the table.
Thank you. Mr. Kulka.
I believe that when it comes to equity, there are some ways to do it, and I think a big portion of that is adult education. I think we need to put in more programs that raise people up. There's a big debate about should there be an increase in minimum wage. I'm opposed to that. I think we need to train people up and give them the skills as far as language, trades, and abilities, and we need to make Bloomington more open for business in that way and work with current business owners to help incentivize them to have these programs to get people up and have equity and compete for these jobs and be successful.
Thank you. Mr. Einsman.
I don't know what the city has been doing. I'm all for helping people that are not so privileged like the wealthy. When my father was a professor in a black college in Alabama, there was a civil rights campaign. I was in on that. And Martin Luther King slept on our couch. And then I went to all-white college in Alabama, so I know the situation real well. I have nothing else.
Ms. Christensen.
The word equity to some people means good jobs, affordable housing. This is something that we need in the city of Bloomington itself. As my role at the Department of Human Services, there's a push, obviously, for equity. But being in the city here, you know, your zip code should not define where you are or where you work. You should be able to have enough fairness to live wherever you want to live and to bring forth livable wages so we can invite people of varying ethnic backgrounds to be included in the city and to have conversations between the city and the citizens. I agree with my opponent that the city should go where they are, go out into the streets and onto the houses that people live. Go have the district representatives meet them have city meetings about this particular cause. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to rephrase the next question a little bit. Hopefully it'll make sense. Everybody wants government to be transparent. Transparency means different things to different people. We start with Ms. Christensen. Where do you think Bloomington is on the journey of a transparent government, and what do you think Bloomington could do to be more transparent?
Transparency, to me, belongs with the same word as honesty. The city, I've heard from a lot of people that the city is somewhat disconnected with its residents in decisions that they've made on certain issues. They really need to get out into the city more and to actually have real conversational pieces face-to-face with citizens, not through emails, not through phone calls, which are obviously very important, but they need to go out beyond the city council room. They need to actually go out into the community, have meet and greets with the citizens, have formed committees with different issues that people can be involved in more. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Einsman.
Well, transparency, I thought we had enough. People can come to any city council meeting, which I go to those. You just have to become a more involved citizen. I lived in Bayfield for 13 years. I went to every county and city and meeting as a political science student, observer, and so I know how that whole thing works. And they wanted me to be mayor, but I left town.
Mr. Bussey.
I think transparency, the word is, it's a loaded word, like we're hiding something, and I never think the city of Bloomington is hiding anything. Everything is there, everything is accessible, everything is available to anyone who would like it. I think a better way to look at this is engagement, and I think we've tried to do a little better job over the past couple of years. The city council is looking for ways to engage much better with its residents. We had our town hall forums last fall. We had a great town hall forum related to the State of the City address, which I think was very well attended and very well done. We heard from people, we asked, how do you like to get your information? And everybody said through the Bloomington briefing. So the city council approved the funding to make it go from a 6 times a year publication to a 12 times a year publication, and it's very well received. I think things like that are a way that we can take on this transparency issue by engaging, by providing more information. And honestly, just on Monday night, we talked about the possibility of revisions to our study meetings to make them more accessible, to give people more of an opportunity to be involved and to see what we're doing. Again, not behind any closed doors, but in our role as city government.
Thank you. Mr. Kolka?
I've never been surveyed. I've lived here for 34 years, and I've never seen any of these surveys or answered any of these questions. So I feel like transparency is a large issue in the city. I think there are a lot of things that could be done to help this issue. One thing I'm doing in my campaign right now is forming teams and committees and coalitions to inform me, and I think we need to do that as a city. I think we need to have more participation from the people that live here and the people that exist in certain realms so that they can give accurate information to city council and to city officials to make informed and educated decisions. Surveys don't do it, especially when you're only surveying a few people that probably are already heavily involved. I think the city can do better at updating their websites, doing more on social media, and doing more emailing to get the word out to more people.
Thank you. Mr. Nijellik?
Thank you. I think that's where fundamentally we have to think about transparency, and I think it's been brought up it's relationship-based and it's information-based. We need to not expect people to come to City Hall to get the information. We need to be coming out to the community. Think about reestablishing neighborhoods in our city, where neighbors are getting together on issues important to them, and city staff are coming out there on a regular basis, updating them what's going on, but also learning from the community. So the one thing is we need to get out of City Hall, talking to residents, make sure they are aware of what's going on so they can participate, so we're having regular meetings with our community. Two is it's information. We need to be able to create a very simple, accessible dashboard for yourselves and ourselves, which has what are the goals that we're achieving, making sure we have definable goals, living wage job, what's safety, what's affordable housing, having those, document what they are, but also show our progress. So when you go onto our website, you can say, how are we doing with this category? Are we meeting our goal around this? Are we meeting our goal around sustainability? So it's information and it's relationship. We need to come out to the community.
Thank you. What policies, if any, would you propose to improve affordable housing in Bloomington, starting with Mr. Nijellik?
Thank you. Affordable housing is a critical issue in our city and across the nation. And we need to understand, first of all, what is affordable housing? Because unless you can understand it, you can't deal with it. Second of all, we actually need to create goals and not projections. First of all, what is affordable housing? It deals with living wage jobs. It deals with people trying to stay in their house and be able to afford their house. And it deals with rental. And so we need to look at all those areas. We need to think about, okay, how do we deal with the fact that we don't have enough living wage jobs in our city? What are we going to do about that? How we work with the business community to increase the number of living wage jobs. We should have targets around living wage jobs that we're going to create in our city. In regards to some of the other models, we need to look at what other things they're doing. We have to realize that affordable housing is also supply and demand. How do we grow appropriate levels of housing in different areas, especially around our transportation nodes? That's a critical part of what we're doing that. And we need to do it such that we come out to the community and we come up with those strategies together, working on how do we make that appropriate for your neighborhood.
Thank you. Mr. Einsman?
Well, I've been following it for years. I think the situation is kind of real bad because wealthy people buy houses outright in cash, and then we have everybody likes Minnesota and they move here, and that drives up the rents and the price of housing. I actually think the situation is impossible.
Okay. Ms. Christensen?
The city of Bloomington is just like a lot of other cities in the state of Minnesota. Although the Bloomington Housing Coalition has currently been working very hard in conjunction with the city to pass what's called the Opportunity Housing Ordinance. And that creates, construction for these types of housing units. It gives incentives for developers and current owners of affordable rental housing, along with helping these citizens. Again, like I said before, it doesn't matter what your zip code is in the city. There's several of them, And I've spoken with people from the east side and the west side. As far as this is concerned, there really shouldn't be an east side and a west side. The city is divided between east and west. And affordable housing could be located in any area of the city. You don't have to live in a certain geographical area to think that you need rental housing or affordable housing. It should be available for anybody at any time in any parts of the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bussey?
Housing is a basic right, and I am proud that my council colleagues and I, in February, adopted the most innovative and comprehensive affordable housing ordinance in the state of Minnesota, basically. And it is innovative, and you know it's good when I was at a League of Minnesota Cities meeting, and a number of cities are copying it already. It's that good. It was a matter of city staff working with developers to figure out not requirements, not what has to be done, but to work with developers to try and figure out incentives, different ways that we can encourage them to invest in affordable housing, to invest in housing in the city of Bloomington. It's a wonderful opportunity ordinance, and I'm really excited. It's a great framework for the future. As what we're doing right now, our Housing and Redevelopment Authority is very active. We've got a 400-unit apartment going up at Penn and American that is going to be right on the new Orange line, so it's going to be affordable housing. It's going to be on a transit line. It's basically a fabulous model for the future as to how we are working here in Bloomington to meet this need for affordable housing.
Thank you. Mr. Kulka?
Yeah, I think affordable housing is one piece of the pie. I think it boils down to more about affordable living. I agree with Dan when he says it's not just housing, it's more about transportation and making it affordable for businesses to be here and creating more jobs that exist here within the city. Keeping more of our sales tax dollars here within our borders will lower living for everybody. The simple fix to slap a Band-Aid on it is to work with new developers and mandate that there's a certain percentage of affordable living in new construction. But there are a lot of current landlords who have developed properties in the past that create what's called naturally occurring affordable housing. A lot of that exists in the city, and I think we need to work with current landlords in order to incentivize them as well to get on board with affordable housing and affordable living programs.
Thank you. I'll give you about 15 seconds to think about this one because it's one of those ranking kinds of questions. As mayor, you're the leader of the city and the leader of the council. So what are your top 3 objectives that you would like to accomplish? This person said in the first year of your administration, but I'll say as quickly as possible or whatever, because I know that, what are you going to do in the first 100 days? But anyway, what are the things that lead your priority list as mayor? We'll start with Mr. Kulka.
That was 15 seconds, huh?
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, I think top priority for me is what I just spoke about, affordable living. Not only making more affordable housing for people, but creating jobs, training people up, affecting transportation in a more affordable manner as well, and then also businesses. So I think affordable living, affordable housing is number 1. Number 2, we spoke about transparency earlier. I would like to put in more programs and again create coalitions, committees that give the people more of a voice and get them more involved in making the decision. 7 or 8 people can't speak for an entire city, and I know that. So that's number 2. And then financial responsibility is huge. There's a lot of projects in the city that need funding. And there's a lot of money going to a couple projects right now. And in my mind, I feel like there's a lot of money focused in 1 or 2 areas, and we're not listening to everybody and focusing and spreading the wealth, so to speak.
Thank you. Ms. Christensen.
Not in any particular order, but the top three would be affordable housing, transportation issues, and fiscal responsibility. I say that because of, you know, in our own households, we're pretty much expected to manage our budgets, to get out of debt, and be prudent spenders. The city, I believe, needs to look at some of the projects, albeit very good projects. They just maybe need to take their time a little bit more to think about the costs and what the effects of the ramifications for the city citizens would be. And affordable housing, there needs to be more of that, obviously, as what's been previously mentioned. And transportation, you know, the Orange Line is great. It's going to be great. I take public transportation to St. Paul every single day. Probably 99.9% of the time I take that both ways. Sure, it takes a little bit of time, but there needs to be more types of transportation options for the further western part of the city as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Niziolek.
First priority is to the message, government is a formal extension of community. We are going to be building a community-engaged government. We're going to rekindle neighborhoods and community groups, and we're going to build a structure where staff is working with residents on a regular basis, because north side, south side, east side, west side, we all have different issues. If we bring people together around those and we work with them, we're going to create a better city. First of all, community-engaged city. Second of all, we need a safety. Job one of any city is safety. We need to make sure we have the strongest partnership between our community members and our police department possible. Because if a city's not safe, turn out the lights and go home. I've done that. I did for 8 years on the Minneapolis Police Department. The key is getting the police department working closely with the community, and we need to make sure that traffic safety is a part of it. Our streets are out of control. We need to really focus on that. Finally, and very importantly, living wage jobs. I want to bring the business community together, the residential community together, the educational community together. We are going to identify how we are going to create living wage jobs. We'll set goals and we'll achieve them.
Thank you. Mr. Bussey.
We will continue to thoughtfully and carefully care for your Bloomington tax dollars, and we will continue to provide the outstanding city services that we provide to businesses and residents and that they've come to expect. We are going to invest in our neighborhoods, we're going to reinvest in the neighborhood community centers, and we're going to spur development along our major streets in Bloomington. And finally, we will actively prepare for and aggressively get to the coming demographic changes that are coming right at us across Bloomington. And we are going to use the diversity in Bloomington as a strength and no longer talk about it in any other way. Our diversity in Bloomington is a strength, and we will look at it in that way.
Thank you. Mr. Einsman.
I'm in this principally on behalf of DNR people and park people that told me they cannot speak openly about it without being fired, but we need to close the lakes all around Minnesota, and I intend to talk about it until everyone in Minnesota talks about it. Same for closing on Sunday the stores so that small business has a chance to enter without working 7 days a week. And I'm just surprised how many people love these ideas. People in the city and this closing on Sunday just absolutely love it. There's an underlying demand that we didn't know about.
Thank you. We have come to the end of our time for questions. We will move on to closing statements by the candidates, beginning with Mr. Einsman. You have 1 minute for a closing statement.
Well, I think I should be mayor because of my history of doing many jobs. And I worked for the railroad for 6 years on the track, even so I'm educated, and I was accepted. I was, out of 70 people that were hired, I'm the only one that survived 6 years. So the working people have me as their friend. I had to hide the fact that I was educated when I worked on the rail. And of course, the points I just put out about Sunday closing and protecting the lakes. You know, when I go swimming in 10 years from now, I don't want to swim through milfoil and step on the mussels. So I think the lakes are important, even so the people that make motorboats are going to suffer terrible and go after me. But I intend to talk about it all around the state
Thank you.
from my position.
Mr. Bussey.
First, I want to thank again the League of Women Voters for putting this on. I want to thank all of you for being here. What a great group. I want to thank my wife, Heather, my wife of 30 years, for putting up with all this. I really do appreciate it. I want to leave you with the thoughts that I started with. First of all, experienced and proven leadership matters. Community involvement, actual community involvement matters. And while we've got a great place to live here in Bloomington, everybody says it's a great place to live and work and raise a family. We have a lot of work to do, and I think I'm the person to get that done. I would invite you, please, go to my website at busseyforbloomington.com. You can learn about all the things that I've been talking about tonight and a lot more. And we mentioned it earlier this evening. You guys are informed voters. You know full well that primary elections are decided by a relatively small number of voters. So please get out and vote. And I would very much appreciate it if you would vote for me. Thank you very much. I've appreciated and the support you've given me through my 8 years on the council, and I can't wait to lead Bloomington as your mayor.
Mr. Niziolek.
Thank you, and I also want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum, and of course, most importantly, thank you to you. I would love to work with you as your mayor. I would love to really get excited and do a little course adjustment. We need to make sure we have a community-engaged city government that's working directly with you in your neighborhoods on the things that are important to you. We need to have clear priorities and goals that we have defined. We're going to go after this, and we're going to achieve it, and we're going to show it. We're going to build a safe community. We're going to be an affordable community. It's going to be sustainable, and it's going to be equitable. And it's going to be equitable and sustainable, safe, and affordable because businesses, residents, and city staff are going to work closely together around the priorities we identify and the goals we set. We're going to be transparent. As a resident, you will know what's going on. When bonding bills are proposed or projects are proposed, it's going to be brought to you through your neighborhood. It's going to be brought through you from various communications, and you'll be able to check the status of how we are doing as a city. Where's our money going? How's it being spent? I'd love to work with you because together, Bloomington works. Thank you.
Ms. Christensen.
First of all, thanks to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. My fellow opponents, I look forward to the challenge of having everybody coming out and voting at the primary. I feel I would be a good mayor. I'm an organizer. I am a union steward for my local union. I get things done at work. Organizing 22 people that I work for, technically, on paper it looks good. But I feel that my involvement with the different variety of groups regarding the Mental Health Advisory Board, the Guardian Ad Litem program in Hennepin County, my volunteering in the schools through the public schools here in Bloomington, I feel that I'd be able to organize people, their neighborhoods, their groups, and become, like my opponent said, a very city-engaged community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kulka.
As it's been said, thank you again to the League of Women Voters for hosting this and everybody for showing up. It's huge. I agree with Tim. Leadership does matter, and I've done it. I own and operate 3 businesses. I manage people. I actually know what it's like to create jobs and to put food on people's tables directly. I feel like that's a large strength as far as being able to hear everybody, bring people together, again, create coalitions, create committees that give the citizens of Bloomington more of a voice. I love this city. I've been here my whole life, owned homes here, started businesses here, and I think I'm the best candidate for mayor to work on affordable housing, to make government, city government, more transparent, and to increase the financial responsibility that goes on within the city. So thanks again. Please visit my website, kolkaformayor.com, if you'd like to get involved or support. And to echo Tim, the primary does matter, and so you can vote now through August 13th. Thank you very much.
Reminder to the audience that if you didn't get your question answered tonight, there's a pile of cards behind me that we didn't get to. Please remember to contact candidates directly. Thank you, candidates, for participating in this forum and for your willingness to participate in the democratic process. by actually putting yourself in the arena, as TR used to say. Let's give them now a good hearty round of applause. As the candidates said, thank you to the League of Women Voters of Bloomington. Remember that this forum has been video recorded. It will be able to be viewed online at the LWB Bloomington website, at the city website, and on YouTube. It will also be rebroadcast frequently on Bloomington Cable TV until August 13th. Thank you to you, the audience. As the candidates have said, the League exists to create informed voters, and that's who you are. Thank you very much. This concludes the forum.